Welcome. This is Dr. Benzinger on Health with secondopinion.org. What can be more important than our children or even ourselves if we suffer from a disease called ADHD, Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder? There's a lot out there. There's a lot misunderstood. There's a lot not understood. We know it's basically a bunch of symptoms that your child, let's say in this case, ends up finding out that they match many of those symptoms. Unfortunately, many symptoms that I matched when I was younger, I wasn't put on medications, and my son matched very well and was not put on medications. He just was given more activities, cleaned up his diet. I cleaned up my diet. For some reason, we did relatively well without disrupting the class and still having degrees and leading a normal life. ADHD, Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. Question is, what is it? What's it about really? And what can you do about it? Is what today's session is all about. The question I always ask is, will you choose to control your own future or your own child's future, or will you be controlled by the condition they have been tagged with without investigating fully all the options at your fingertips? What is ADHD? Well, up to 8 million people are affected, and symptoms of ADHD are simply the extremes of every behavior possible. My mother would tell you that probably she would consider that I had extreme symptoms of behavioral issues, and we lived out towards farmland, and I think her normal thing was, get out of here and I don't want to see you until dinner time. I think that was the answer most of the time. It was amazing. By the time I came in at 5 or 6 o'clock to eat dinner, I was pretty calm and pretty relaxed. But boy, in that morning, I was ready to go. You got to know that it can exist in areas of attention, behavior, or motor movements. Just can't sit still, can't stop talking, can't pay attention. It can be any of those things. So you can start following that this can be a very broad, overdiagnosed, overpushed condition that unfortunately can make lots of people have ADHD and put on suppressive neurologic drugs that end up having some major side effects years later unless you try to see everything you can do conservatively with and without the medications. And that's what we're going to be talking about. The possible inducers, genetic leak, it seems to run in families, but so does the neural function of any genetic. We're genetically linked. Possibly those habits that are passed down family to family member, certain dietary habits, caffeination, chemical exposures, if they do the same types of jobs, might be as much of the issue as anything else. What's interesting, if dad seems to be sensitive to sugar, son usually seems to be. If mom seems to have a hard time with her periods, daughter often has a hard time with the periods until they find a solution to the problem. Does that mean that it's a genetic link you can do nothing about? No, possibly you just haven't found the answer. Neurologic activity, some studies have shown that the brain shows some irregularities in their function, and the brain is asynchronized. Well, the question is, why is it asynchronized? Chemical differences, certain chemicals react differently in ADHD sufferers. So thus, sugar to an ADHD sufferer or caffeine could be completely opposite in their effect, or extremes of symptoms could occur simply because they barely breathe sugar, barely breathe caffeine, barely breathe artificial colors or something like that, or dyes that they're allergic to, or cotton that's treated, most of the cotton that you use in your beds or that you sleep on for your sheets are treated with formaldehyde. Maybe that's a contributor. There are many, many, many options, and what I want you to know is we have to know that it makes sense that they will react to bad diets more extreme than maybe someone who doesn't have the tendency towards this neurologic condition or weakness or change that they suffer from. So synthetic products may even make it worse. Heck, even your cleaning products at home could make this condition worse. Keep those things in mind first. We want to make sure that you know that you need to be empowered to do everything you can from that home area before you start just thinking, doomed child, going to have to do this the rest of our life. Because many times you don't know. You can't believe the thousands of patients that have come through my doors over the years, never even thought about doing these things, never even encouraged to do these things. but there's lots of more help groups and organizations that are starting to help these things, okay? So keep that in mind. There's lots of things you can do. There's different types of ADHD, the inattentive type, difficulty focusing, but are still able to sit still. So they just can't focus, but they can sit still and calm. Hyperactive impulsive type, focusing is not the issue. They can focus quite fine, but they struggle to sit still and they don't understand the consequences before saying and doing something. And then the combined type are simply both, and they are a much more difficult crew to have to work with. Some of the symptoms that pigeonhole them into it, inattentive type, would be making careless mistakes, not seeming to listen as someone talks, disorganized or forgetting things, having trouble focusing on a specific task, while the hyperactive impulsive type, speaking or acting out of turn, not considering consequences before they're acting, feeling restless and unsettled, excuse me, and excessive physical and verbal activity. And of course, the combined is that, combined of both, okay? Secondary symptoms that actually occur in ADHD frequently that are unaddressed or not even discussed is they have a feeling of hopelessness. They don't fit in. You know, years and years ago, it was probably in the 60s or 70s, what was really interesting is they started talking about dysfunctional families. But, you know, I heard these statistics. If 18% of Americans have dysfunctional families, then it went to 25, and then it went to 45, and then it went to, it's over 50%. You know what that means? Having a dysfunctional family is normal. Keep that in mind. All too often we want to pigeonhole kids in these situations. You know, I don't know. You know, 100 years ago, 92% of Americans lived on farms. Maybe they did what my mom did and just kicked them outside, and this wasn't such a big issue because the bottom line is they were just like all the other kids. They needed to burn off lots of steam. They needed to be very active. They needed to be participating in lots of other things than what they were doing right then. Okay? So, but the secondary symptoms concern me because hopelessness, frustration, difficulty getting along with others, worry, procrastination, and then when they're addressed, well, why don't you get along? Something's wrong with you, and then they're pigeonholed like this. You talk about a kid feeling bad about themselves or an adult feeling bad about themselves, many times never getting over it. I question whether this type of approach of what's wrong with them, instead of starting to work with all the other options first and aggressively getting in there and sitting with this child and getting to know them as a person, might make a big difference on these secondary issues, not creating other problems. Boredom, loss of motivation, difficulty managing time or money, poor quality sleep, and here's the last one, common, low self-esteem. I see it every day in my office. So the question is, will you choose to control your future, your child's future, or will you allow what has been pigeonholed in this society to control you? Conservative treatments to look at is to frankly find a qualified and good therapist, counselor, minister, psychologist, or psychiatrist that's more sensitive to these things. Instead of trying to draw the kid in, isolate them, and make them feel like they're this unique, odd person. I'd love to see therapists and counselors and psychologists and psychiatrists that understand we got a human being sitting here that needs love, affection, understanding, communication, and encouragement. Not, boy, you're sure making it hard on the family. Boy, we can't afford all this counseling. You talk about those type of things, and I'm telling you what kid isn't going to feel pretty bad, okay? Here's those other conservative options to consider. Diet, the morning breakfast and lunch. Now, we know that more than 70% of kids walk out of homes with either nothing to eat or nothing more than a high carbohydrate-based diet. That's it. Now, that's a huge number. If your child is getting those normal cereals that come off the shelf at your grocery store and they have a high sugar content with no protein balance or anything else because they like it, because guess what? They're going to crave it. They like being hyped up and energy filled, okay? But you give in to that, you have pretty much guaranteed the next 3 hours of hell for the teacher, and there's no reason that child should have to feel that way, folks. You've got to get protein-based, whole grain foods in this child before they go to school, because let me tell you, school lunches are not going to be the place most of the time, and if you can pack their lunch, more power to you. God bless you for doing it. And lots of schools are doing snacks. My child takes in apple, oranges, carrots, things like that, small dips that we make up for her. We do all kinds of things like that because we don't need her not concentrating. We don't need her missing an entire math day because she decided to have Twinkies for lunch because the next door neighbor thought it was a great thing to bring in. There's no reason to make some child suffer. I mean, to me, having that type of dietary program means the following. Would you come up and just say next door neighbor should punch your kid in the arm as hard as they can? Just, once a day, that's all, no big deal. Well, that's what those type of foods do to your child's system. Neurologically, mentally, emotionally, and immune system. Don't do that. Fight. Get up and fight. Let's make a difference. Eat a basic diet. Whole grains, whole vegetables, lean meats, and other good proteins such as beans and rice and lentils, and doctor it up. Find a way to make it taste good. There's millions of ways to do it, millions of books out there. I don't need to write one. There's plenty out there. Whole grains, not enriched cereals, not quick oats, not ones that you can pour in with some hot water, mix it up, and think you gave them something good. You didn't give them anything. There's nothing left in that food anymore. It's been beaten to death, okay? So if you haven't gotten our carbohydrate seminar, pick it up. That might help a lot. Lots of water and real juices, not the ones that have a bunch of sugar in it. They're cheaper, but they're no advantage. Just don't give it to them. It's not going to help them. Give them water. No enriched foods out of boxes or cans. It may be boring, but it may change their very life forever. Why would we want to spend $70 to $120 a month making them take something that's going to affect other chemistry in their body permanently when you have a chance at home to maybe make a difference by yourself? Take control. Own it. Empower yourself. Food allergies, something to remember. These kids, ADHD kids, dairy products of all kinds should be eliminated, including eggs. Wheat products, they're everywhere. You got to get them out of their diet. Corn products, they're everywhere. Got to get them out of it. Read boxes. Do all that you can, Mom and Dad. Citrus foods. All sugars that are not part of the fruit or real fruit or vegetable. No table sugar, synthetic sugars, please. Artificial ingredients need to be removed. Preservatives and dyes, our possibility might be the issue. The Feingold's diet may save you time. So you might want to do a search on Feingold's diet and actually follow that one. I think you find it to be advantageous. When we're looking at vitamins and minerals to get into your kid, essential fatty acids, fish oils, very good. If that won't work, use flaxseed oil because sometimes fish oils have a taste they can't get by, but they have tasteless types now, by the way. Walnuts, almonds, Brazilian nuts, green leafy vegetables can suffice for these essential fatty acids if you want. Blue-green algae or chlorophyll might be a great supplement to add to them because they come in little capsules. Calcium, magnesium, even in liquid form, would be brilliant. Choline or lecithin can be liquid, can be in smaller amounts, depends if your child can swallow them or not. Ginseng, pycnogenols, all help. ADHD. Here's some of the brain-specific support. Again, work with an alternative doc on this. If your doc is the one, your family doc, your standard care provider is the one prescribing medications for your child, they should not consider this until clearing it or making a choice of weaning them on or off of those medications before trying this. But you don't do it on your own. Do it with your doctor. St. John's wort, L-tyrosine, okay, ginkgo biloba, 5-HTP and tryptophan, vinpocetine, the melatonin, very small dosage, no more than 1 milligram usually, in smaller kids from 12 on up to 3. Valerian root, passiflora, those bottom two I really love. They do a wonderful job of not sedating, but calming your child with no side effects. That's the greatest part of it. And clean up your environment. Home Safe Home is a wonderful book that gives you lots of the information. You'll see our videos on it. I think that will help. But remember, dust. Sweep with only a HEPA filter. Eliminate carpeting in your house as much as you can. It's frankly causes all kinds of allergic reactions. Clean with natural products and get rid of the harsh cleaners and cleansers. Dust mites, mold, animal dander can create problems. Eliminate the herbicides and pesticides that Dad loves to pour on your lawn that causes problems with the neurologic system of most human beings. Fragrances such as candles, which are nothing more than petroleum products actually burning up. Plug-ins do the same thing, and you know a lot about toys and possibly cups being not only lead-lined, but having other estrogen-like products in it that could be harmful to your child. So other supportive treatments, energy work, exercise, guided imagery, light therapy, mostly during the winters if your child or you seem to get down, December, January, February, March, massage, meditation, yoga, acupuncture has had some benefits here, Ayurvedic medicines and chiropractic therapy seems to help. When it's aggressive, find a good psychiatrist and psychologist that you can work with, that will work with you on medications while you're doing all the other things, so that if you have to have medications, have the least that you need to be able to accomplish the work at hand. Okay? So attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, recognize the signs, don't ignore it, ask and seek treatment quickly, and get to work on your own to control and empower yourself to your future as well as your child. You'll be teaching them so much by doing it this way. We thank you for tuning in. This is Dr. Benzinger on Health with secondopinion.org. We'll look for you next time, and may God bless you.